Although America is the greatest nation in the world, there is one area where it is failing rapidly. At the core of its struggles is a crisis we don't talk about enough. And no, it's not our national debt or politics. It's fatherlessness. Statistics show that children without fathers are 4 times more likely to end up in poverty. Their chances of dropping out of school, using drugs, or ending up in prison go way up. At the same time, there's this common idea that if you're a man who wants to succeed in business, you can't really prioritize family life. Personally, I don't agree with that. So I sat down with Tom Ellsworth, also known as the Biz Doc. Tom has led and managed over $1.5 billion in business exits, served in executive roles at a variety of successful companies, including Valuetainment and Bet David Consulting. And with all that, he is also a father. In this conversation, we didn't discuss his business ventures, doing deals, or money. We talked about fatherhood, priorities, and what it means to live a meaningful life.
I feel that right now America is missing like this calling of a father. A lot of men in America, and like statistics right now show that the US leads the world in the number of children that are growing up without a father. So my first question for you would be, why is the greatest country in the world has this issue? And is this an actual issue, or is this something that is like a new normal that we're supposed to get used to?
Well, first of all, Paul, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to know you. It's a pleasure to know your wife and to talk business with you. And it's an absolute privilege also to be talking about something that matters so much. And I would say the first thing is America is the greatest country in the world for many reasons. But even the greatest athlete in the world needs a coach. Even the greatest athlete in the world, greatest performer in the world has something that they're working on. And I believe the United States needs to work on the core of the family, specifically fathers. The statistics that you talk about are absolutely correct. We have so many unwed mothers in this country. We have a gap in father leadership. Children need leadership from their mom and from their father. Fathers teach courage, boldness, service, protection of the family. Mothers treat, the family as they want to be treated, and they teach us through that nurturing, love, compassion, and support for the father. I think mother and father work together to make this incredibly powerful core that every child needs. And when you take the father out of that equation, you have men that are being led by false gods of courage. Being tough at school, being a bully, that's not courage. And so I think there is an absolute crisis in fatherhood in the greatest country in the world. And if you take the greatest country in the world and we restore the standards of fatherhood and restore the core of the family, we will not only be the greatest country in the world, suddenly you're talking, we're back to being one of the greatest countries in history.
Yes.
Because I think history will be rewritten by the strength of the American family.
That's really, really well put. In your opinion, how do you think we got here?
We got here in a lot of ways, and there's been a breakdown of the family and a lot of things happening. Today is a very interesting day as the Catholic Church has chosen an American Pope. Robert Prevost, I believe I'm pronouncing it, of New York, will be known as Pope Leo XIV, I think he will be known as. And he is conservative and supportive of family, and I think you need symbols of that. Now, I believe in the core Christian church, you also have tremendous teachings of the importance of family. But when did it slide? And I think if you take a look in the 1960s, we had a break of trust in America. the Vietnam War and the mandatory draft, where so many young men lost their lives, and corruption that became very visible, broke trust. And you can go take a look at the American trust in government and trust in institutions, and it broke in the 60s. And when that trust broke, we also had women's liberation, be liberated of the family, be liberated of control. And so suddenly we had these things parting. So people did not trust the government that was sending their sons and their brothers to Vietnam for no good reason. And 55,000 of them lost their lives. And that was a legitimate break of trust. But you also had a break of the family that happened in there from the generation of the 60s. And that was the boomers. And as the last of the boomers were born early in that decade. And what happened was suddenly, a free love society and a women's liberation and a break of trust in the government, which was legitimate, suddenly all came together, and it broke the American family. And you can look in the 60s and come forward and see unwed mothers. And it was then in the early 70s that abortion, Roe v. Wade, was passed. So you look at all the things that happened, and now we are reaping what we sowed for 40 years. 40, actually more than that, 40, 50 years of change and progressing on that path, where they call it progressive. But the word progressive is wrong. It's actually regressive. People that call themselves progressive think that we want to take them back to the dark ages or take them back someplace. We don't. There is a common sense element about what happens. Why is it that you have organization like Big Brothers and Big Sisters suddenly providing male and female, leadership to kids coming from single parent households, and suddenly they have a little bit of balance in their life? Wow, what's that all about? That's big coincidence. And so that's the issue for me, is that it started breaking in the 60s, and we've continued chipping away at it. And now, what do we have? Now look at our schools, what we have. Look at the inner cities and what's happening. Look at cultural things that are unique to the Black community, Hispanic community, Asian community, and other communities. Look at cultural things that are happening, and then ask yourself a question: where did this start? And the answer is, it was in the 60s, and we broke it. We come forward today.
And I know, we came to America in 1993, and in my experience living there in Ukraine, I had one sort of view on how families were. Like the husband, hearing about divorce was a very, very rare thing. Almost nobody divorced that we know of in that area. And the way the family structure was, it was pretty much traditional, the way we thought it's supposed to be. The man, the house, the wife was at home helping with the children. A lot of us families over there had a lot of children. My parents had 13 of us. And I remember when we came to America and we started watching some American movies, so many movies in America showed dad being this idiot who just was not capable of putting things together. Either the children or the mom always, put him down. And then we would hear phrases like, and maybe this is something that's common right now, but I would hear phrases when someone were to say if the family made a decision, and they would often say, well, what does the boss say? Meaning the wife, right? And I don't know if that's a typical American culture thing, or is that something that came later?
I think Hollywood was propagating a lot of stereotypes and making caricatures of fathers, cartoons out of them. Oh, your stupid father. And it was, the father went from a symbol of faith, leading the family in faith, leading the family in integrity, leading the family in achievement, and leading the children in strength, love, compassion, service, strong ethics about school and then about work. That was the father's duty. And most people don't understand that. And And Hollywood worked to undermine that. They thought it was funny, but there was also deeper things. They wanted to undermine that symbol of family. And it's not American family. That is the symbol of family as God designed it. I don't care whether you're Jewish or you're Christian or you're Mormon or you're Catholic. That doesn't matter. In all of those, what do you see? A stable family. And all of those that take biblical principles, the Bible is very clear. And it says the man is the head of the household, but he will protect and love and give himself up for his wife the way Christ gave himself up for the church. Christ died for the church, which means that the strong man is willing to give up his life for his family and specifically to protect the wife. And so people that want to think, oh, well, all these conservative religions, they want this. No, the mother is sacred. The mother is the mother. It was a woman that brought Christianity into the world. She birthed Christ and his mother Mary. And you see all of the roles there. They want to distort. They don't want the truth of the story to be out there. That the mom is the core and the strength in love and compassion, and the father is willing to give up his life for his wife and protect the family. And by the way, when you find a man like that, what woman doesn't want to marry a man like that? Who's going to protect you and provide for you and be willing to give up his life for you and to encourage you in your career as a nurse, a teacher, or a CEO, a woman that creates her own company. Who doesn't want a man that's going to protect you and going to be there? And for men, who doesn't want a wife that's going to be compassionate, softer, loving, but still be strong in the family to raise the kids? Because you don't want to come home and be the only person that comes down on the kids, right?
Yes.
You want the wife to say, no, wait till your dad gets home. No, you want the wife to say, no, you're not doing that. And if you want to really disobey your mom, then you go to the bonus round. And when your dad gets home, it gets rough. But, that should be, the dad should be coming home acting as the Supreme Court.
Yes.
But the mom and the dad should be the police equally. But if you really get out of line, dad's the Supreme Court, and you don't want that.
Yeah, I was remembering when I was thinking about, I got married and I was thinking about, okay, the time's going to come, we're going to have children, how I approached it, how many conversations I was having with Tatiana about how it's going to be. I always played in my mind what kind of father I'm going to be to my children. But I feel like very often, especially like the younger generation, they look at a relationship with a woman as a sort of, a pleasurable thing for them, not as a way where, and if, let's say, a woman gets pregnant, that's sort of like the byproduct or just the result of the main thing, which is, let's say, sex or the pleasure. It's not that, hey, this as a married couple, we're doing this because we want family. We know that we are waiting for a precious soul to come to this world, and we are ready for this, and we are ready to be the father and the mother and nurture. Like I remember the time when I was getting ready, our firstborn, my first son, was born, and I was getting ready. I thought I was ready. I was preparing. We're in a hospital, and then that time when the doctors gave Liev, that's his name, my son, as a baby, they gave me while they were sewing up Tatiana, and I was holding him, I was looking at him, and for me, like that weight of responsibility and realization that, hey, now there's no going back from this. Now you are responsible for this soul. You are responsible for this. You have to protect him. You have to provide for him. You have to also be involved in his life. You can't just wing it, because a lot of, especially, I know this is a very challenging thing for people who, especially business owners or a lot of Slavic mentality men. I talk to them a lot, and for them, like, work is sort of the number one thing. Hey, I'm the provider. I have to go bring the bacon. So whatever it takes. And if someone came from the former Soviet Union, they don't know the language, they haven't learned a trade, they're out there trucking. 2 weeks, they come back home, they bring the check. In a couple of days, they're back at it, right? Not really involved with children. And same thing with those who are very busy building businesses. One thing that I sort of noticed about you, Tom, is that you are very involved in business, very successful, multiple businesses, but yet you were able to balance being a good father, being there for your daughters. You have 2 daughters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct? And at the same time, still be able to succeed in business. How did you manage to do that?
Well, not everything I did as a father was successful, but I was always fully committed. And so there were years and chapters where I wasn't as available as much as I wanted to be. But my commitment was number one. And it started out with a simple, my wife and I both made a commitment to education. We said, look, it's got to be a good school because we can't send them to a bad school, have them be polluted, and then they get home and we got to fix them. And then the next morning we send them back to school again for that environment. No. So we were always committed to have them in the best schools possible, but also provide balance. And we've done that most of the time. There was one school they were at for 2 years that was not the right choice. We didn't realize that, but we found the opportunity to change that. So after 2 years, we're like, okay, we're done. We're changing this. And we didn't take that lightly because the girls had some friends. So we didn't take it lightly, but we did take it seriously. And so what I've done is I've always been committed to education. And guess what? That automatically forces time. And then one of my daughters played soccer and golf. The other daughter played soccer. And I went to as many games as possible and things when they were younger.
So did you have to give up something while doing that?
I didn't really give up things because I tended to burn the candle at both ends, which wasn't always good. In the evenings, 8 to 10 o'clock, I would, catch up on work that needed to be done the next day. But you have to balance it. You have to balance it. You can have, I don't think work-life balance is necessarily on the clock, because in any business, there are some people, like salespeople. Oh, I don't want to come to the office. I'll tell me what you want me to deliver. And a rare example of there are people that can deliver their quota, deliver their numbers, and not be in the office. But that's rare. You know what I mean? It's very rare.
Yeah.
Just tell me what you want me to get done. I'll do it. Very rare.
I see a lot of men right now, they prioritize first their career or the business before starting a family, getting married, having children. But in the Bible, it says that there's time for everything. And do you think that if someone sort of does that and chooses to sort of prioritize that and maybe starts thinking that it doesn't matter, I can start a family when I'm in my sort of 40s, mid 40s, that it's actually a little bit difficult when you have newborn babies and dealing with that when they're already growing up, going out and taking them. There's a lot of energy that requires of a father when children are growing up and being there, that it's much easier done when you're a little bit younger than when you're approaching 50. What do you think about that?
I think raising children is easier when you're young and full of energy, on one sense, and then raising children is easier when you're a little older because you have more experience in life. If you read that, you say, okay, Tom, I should have a kid when I'm 35. But I think, like you said, I remember holding my oldest daughter for the first time, and I remember thinking to myself, wow, we made a person, and the hospital's going to let us take her home. They're going to trust us to go raise her. I was thinking just kind of odd like that. And I'm like, okay, so society is trusting that I'm going to go take this person home and do good.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is why when you have family, guess what you have as a young person when you have your first child? you have hopefully your own father. Hopefully you have uncles and aunts, and you have generations of people that believe the same way you do that are providing support and assistance. And so I also think that, you may have more energy when you're younger, but you need to be wise on both sides. It may be easier to have kids when you're younger,
Mm-hmm.
in one sense, but it may be easier to get questions answered as you're raising kids when you're older. But in either situation, there's something you have to learn, something you have to understand, and you go do it.
But I think accepting that responsibility and just taking that leap of faith, I feel like for me, having some friends and relatives who have done it earlier, as far as like started a family, and then those who tend to either not do it yet and they're sort of like in their 40s, is that it gets a little bit difficult to, it's sort of like, I feel like there's this sense of fear of responsibility or commitment to something like that so heavy, and it becomes more difficult and difficult to do, because when we're younger, like we can take more risks. We sometimes don't really think twice about doing something.
Anything.
But it can be sort of a benefit in that. Like, I don't know, like a lot of my like uncles and my dad, my parents, it was a typical thing for them to get married in like super early 20s. My mom was like 18 or 19, but it was really, it kind of sobered them up quickly. Sometimes, like even me, I was in my early 20s and I was just sort of kind of figuring things out, and then I was 23, I got married, and all of a sudden I felt like, no, like this, I can't fool around anymore. Like this is serious, and it really, I don't know, just that sense of responsibility almost kind of pushes you to take life seriously and just accept that responsibility.
Yeah, I think having children does make you serious. And we had our oldest, and then it was 5 years
5 years.
when we had our second. Yeah, it was not easy for us to get pregnant. But we didn't have to go to medications and all that stuff people have to go through, thankfully. But what was very interesting, really interesting, was when I found out our youngest was going to be a girl, I was like, okay, I got two girls. And in the society in which we live, and my youngest is 14, be 15 this summer. And no, my youngest is 13, will be 14 this summer. And my oldest is 18, and she'll be 19 this summer. And so what was really, shocking to me was, well, I have to raise two daughters in this society. And that was a weight that I carried when they were growing up, which led to us being very committed to certain schools and not wanting them to be in certain other schools. And then having to sit with them as they worked through certain situations with friends that weren't so good. So I felt a bigger weight just on that, raising girls.
It's interesting because as a father, you want to protect, especially like the girls. I feel like in many families, it's a very sort of like sensitive area. Your daughter, you want to protect her. Like how do you deal with that when they get to a certain age where you sort of have to give them space? You can't just control everything, exactly where they go and what they do when they're already a teenager, growing up, especially sending out to college. But at the same time, you still want to protect them and watch out for them, and not seem like you're very controlling. Like, did you find any like dilemma or conflict in that?
Yes and no. I always told my daughters why. So in other words, you're asking, if you're too controlling, do your kids not do well with that?
Yeah, they sort of start rejecting parents when
Yep.
when they say, no, you can't do this, you can't go there, you shouldn't do this.
So I spent a lot of time telling them why. I remember when I was explaining to my oldest about high school. I said, what's the purpose of high school? Purpose? I don't know. I said, the purpose of high school is to grow up 75%. That's the purpose of high school, is for you to grow up 75%. It'll get you to age 18. And then between 18 and 21, you're going to grow up 25% because there's a lot of things you'll know. But in high school, you will have approximately 5 good friends. You will know many people, but you'll have 5 good friends and 3 very good friends. And that's it. And these 3 friends will not go to the same college. Statistics says you don't, but you will stay in touch with them. So what's the purpose of high school? Grow up 75%. You're going to make 5 friends. 3 will be good friends that you'll know even as you go to college. And don't screw up. That's the purpose of high school. And I said, here's the don't screw up part. The don't screw up part is don't get distracted from your grades. Because remember I said grow up 75%? Well, getting good grades means you're building discipline. You'll need discipline in your job. If you start your own company, you will need a lot of discipline. So you'll need discipline. You'll need to set standards for yourself. You'll discover whether you're a creative person or you're a more science person. You're going to discover the fingerprint that God put in you. You're going to discover that. And you'll grow up 75%. So don't screw that up, because now you can select. And if you don't screw that up, you have a very wide selection of colleges. If you do screw it up, maybe your list of colleges is smaller. So you want to grow up 75%, make those core friends, and don't be distracted by thinking things could screw up, and put yourself in position to you make the decision of the college you go to. Nobody else tells you to, because you say, nope, I got good grades, I did well, and I'm selecting this one. And you go there. Do you want to make the choice for yourself? Do you see what I just did?
No.
Now I'm not telling you. What is a girl going to say? Yes, I want to choose for myself. Okay, well then to have maximum choice, do this. Don't screw up. Grow up 75%. Be selective, and you'll have 5 very good friends, 3 that will be really tight. And then with good grades and achievement, not only will you be building the skills you'll need in your work and your life and anything you do, now you can choose from all of the opportunities, not from half. And it teaches them a lesson, because if you meander through life and you only have a certain job, you don't get to choose all these houses. You can only choose these.
Mm.
And it's a lesson in life. Life can be very cruel. But I put it out there to say, to put yourself in charge, you need to do these things. That's why I'm going to push you in your homework. That's why I'm going to ask you about your friends and give you feedback, because I want you to have all the choices. Do you want all the choices? My oldest daughter said, yes. I said, okay, if you do that, you'll have all the choices and you will be in control. And if you tell them don't, then they tend to push.
Yes.
No, I told her why. And I said, and watch and see if I'm right. And so I told her, I said, be careful, because there will be little groups at school, but you will find that in these groups, there's just king and queen of the idiots. Oh, there's this popular group here and they're all cheerleaders. Cheerleading is not bad. They go in, it's a dance recital and all that. But when any of them become a clique and become a little group, and there's a leader, that leader is just king and queen, this queen of the idiots, because they think, oh, I am so popular and I am so good and everybody loves me here at high school. And then it's over, and then they go to a college and they are at the bottom again.
Yeah.
And so I said, do you want to get involved in these groups? And my oldest would say, hey, you know what? I see groups of like the popular girls that kind of refer to themselves as the popular girls, and they're not very nice to these girls over here. And 2 of those are some of my friends. And I said, there you go. And so she came back and told me, I wanted my daughters to be able to do 2 things. And I told them about it: reason and resist. If something happened to me, I got cancer young, or I'm on the wrong airplane one day, I wanted them to be able to reason and resist. Reason through, should I be going over to this party with the popular girls? No. In that moment when they say no, they think through, I'm not even good friends with them. They're not even some of the nicer people, but everybody's going over there. And why do I want to go over there? Because everybody's over there. Now, wait a minute. That means I'm just worried about being part of the bigger group. No, I'm not going to do that. That's the moment of resistance. To be perfectly content. The moment of resistance is to make the decision and be perfectly content that it's the right decision. And my oldest had really good friends and was very selective and tremendously good academically, and now she looks back and she sees how it worked out.
Wow, what
She's
you
in
just
college and she says, you're right. I said, how many friends do you have? I've got these 3 really good friends that I like to go see. I said, there may be 4 of them, but she's got this group of friends she really likes sometimes to go to Dallas and to see them.
That's a lot of wisdom, and I'm sure that it's not just the words that we say that works, because there's a lot of words can be said with wisdom, but it also is what we model and how we live. And I think that your daughters have great parents to model after. One thing that's very sad for me to see, especially in the Slavic community in Sacramento, where I'm from, there's a big Slavic community. And because we come from former Soviet Union where there was communism, a lot of the way our parents taught us was mainly about like what we cannot do or shouldn't do because we are Christian. We're not like the world. Because back then when they were persecuted during the years of communism in former Soviet Union, then
Where were you specifically?
in Ukraine.
What
In
part?
Ukraine, it
Were you
was
down by Crimea, Donbass, Kiev?
more closer to Kiev, so kind of more like central, and basically the whole concept of the raising kids or how we differentiate ourselves as Christians is we don't smoke, we don't drink. That's what they do. We don't do this.
Don't.
A lot of don'ts, right? So a lot of kids were grown up and even like in childhood punished for things that they did wrong. And it's like, we don't do this. Remember, you don't do this. We can't do this, and there's no kissing, nothing before the wedding, not, and it was always like, don't do this. You cannot have sex or kiss before the wedding. Not, hey, here's why. It's just, no, that's what the Bible teaches, period. And what happened was a lot of young boys and girls grew up in this culture, in American culture, grew up not in some of the greatest areas because, when they come here, they don't have much. They start living just like we did. We start living in a very bad neighborhoods because that's the cheapest. That's the only thing that, you could afford at the very beginning.
The most expensive thing in the house is the lock on the front door.
Yes. And then by the time comes when they can already leave the house and have their own transportation, have their own car, then it's like a bomb blows up and it just starts taking these young guys and girls in all different ways. And sometimes when I go to a funeral, I walk through the aisles and I see so many young Slavic guys who have basically lost their lives because of either overdosing or bad car accident. I mean, there's a lot of that happening and happened in Sacramento in the Slavic community, and parents are just miserable because they're wondering, what did we do wrong? We grew up in a Christian family. We try to raise them by the scripture, by the Bible, and here we go. There's kids, and also another thing is that there's this mentality where, especially someone who is serving in church, that especially fathers, if he's like a pastor in church or deacon or whatever, that is the number one thing. I gotta go there after work. I take a shower, I get dressed, and I'm heading out to church because the church needs me. The people, the pastor, the main pastor needs me to serve. And I've seen a lot of families like that who had 7, 8, 10 kids, and some of them are no longer here, or some of them just living very, very horrible lifestyles.
You bring up such a great thing. You and I could write a book together. Don't say no to your kids, make them say no to you. And it's a trick title, because when I talk to my daughters about reason and resist, I say things like, do you want to only choose from a small group of schools? No. Okay. Do you want to be told you can only go to these schools? No. I want her to say no.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Mm-hmm.
Because by her saying no, she's saying yes to what I'm trying to teach her, but she's the one saying no. And she now knows why. And so when you talk to your kids, don't have sex, don't have sex, don't have sex. What is this sex thing? I better check this out, right? Because I'm being told no, so there must be something going on. No, there's not. You go to your kids and say, did you know that teenage sex leads to children out of marriage, leads to abortions? Do you want to have to go through an abortion to your daughter? No. Okay. To your son, do you want to go have to help pay for an abortion and live in fear of both families and working extra dollars during the summer to get the money to pay for it? No. That's where you want to go. Okay, then. The wisdom of the Bible and the wisdom of your mom and dad is that when sex is saved for marriage, these things happen. You are building a bond, you're honoring them. She's not comparing you to anyone. You're not comparing her to anyone. Do you want to be compared to 5 boyfriends? Or do you want to be the one man that she cherishes? No, I don't want to be compared to 5 boyfriends. I want to be the one she cherishes. Okay, then if you do it this way, do you want a man who's comparing you to 10 other girlfriends? No, Dad, I don't. No. Okay, then you say yes to these standards with God, and that's what you'll get.
Mm.
And it says, do you want the risk of a car accident? No. Well, take a look. The teenagers who drink, look at the percent that have accidents. Look at the percents that are with friends that were drinking that get hurt or worse in accidents, and they weren't drinking. But for some reason, they were not driving the car home to take the keys and say, number 1, we shouldn't have been here doing this. Number 2, I will drive. Do you want to be in that situation? No. You take them to the edge of consequence with truth. I truthfully told them, don't worry about all these crowds of people at high school. Here's why. Build great relationships with a few people that are your good friends. And it will happen naturally because the statistics say you'll have 5 good friends and 3 really good friends. Mm-hmm. And then when she sees it come true, she goes, what does she say to my younger daughter? Dad was right. Mom was correct. And the younger daughter sees these really good friends that are good, very solid women now. I used to say girls. They're young women. They're all 18, 19. They're young women now. And so it's almost like a mind trick, but you want to get your kids to say no, because if they fear and they say no to something, they now have conviction.
Yes.
And so what is the alternative? Well, I'd rather do this so I don't end up with that. If you show them the consequence and tell them why, then you're not a no machine.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I think you have a better chance. You still have possibilities of a bad boyfriend, a bad girlfriend, bad friends at school, situations. This still is possibility, but you're increasing their odds of success. And I relate it that way. I don't say, well, I want you to be a good girl. I want you to be a good girl. I want you to be a good boy. No, I say, I want you to have the satisfaction of knowing you made good choices and you don't have any problems. You have this. My oldest daughter's not on social media until she was a senior, and she got Instagram as a senior because there was a shared Instagram account from the yearbook at school, but it was only the pictures that were being approved for the yearbook. And she didn't have Instagram, anything else. You know why? I showed her, look at the amount of depression in girls on social media. He says, do you want your friends to be depressed? No. You should probably encourage them to spend less time on social media because depression is here. Making bad choices is here. Always spending money on makeup, fashion, makeup, fashion, to look better, to look crazy. Do you think this is good? Actually, no. Do you want to be running this race like you're a little mouse on a, what's that wheel that's in the mouse cage? You just go round and round. Do you want that? No. Okay. Well, guess what? Social media, they want to addict you because they want to feed you ads. That's their business. Oh.
And there was no interest in doing it before senior year? Like she just sort of just understood that from...
No. I told her 12, 13 years old, this is why I don't want you on social media. And it takes a lot of time. And she got, as a senior, she had an Instagram account, but she understood it. And she would tell her other friends, you know, how much time are you spending on that? How much time are you spending just, what's it called, doom scrolling? You're just doom scrolling. Scrolling. How much time do you spend doing that?
Gosh, and we still don't know.
And so she wasn't like a nun and be like the female pope of her friends. That's not what she was. But they would encourage each other. And there was a lot of families that felt similarly. They say, hey, what good is going to happen with an Instagram account? Oh, she had a picture that 27,000 people like. You have a picture that only 2,000 people like. Great. You know, there is a progress here because she only gets 27,000 likes. This girl's got 4 million likes. Do you want to be on OnlyFans? No. Okay. Because if you really want 4 million, OnlyFans. Go to OnlyFans. You'll kick everybody's butt. You'll be number one. Do you want that? No. And I also told her, I said, I showed her articles where it said that a company didn't hire a person because they looked at their social media and they saw how they really treated other people or saw some things they said. And I said, just remember, Facebook lives forever.
Yes.
And so you go to one party, have one crazy thing, and all of those live forever. Do you want that? And my oldest was like, no. So always put your kid in a position where they say no to you. Give them the facts, give them this. And if they say, well, everybody is doing it, say, okay, I believe you. Which of your friends do you think are strong leaders? This one, maybe me? Okay. Are there more leaders or is there more sheep? There's more sheep. You want to be a sheep? No.
Wow.
It's like, don't say no to your kids. Tell them why. Make them say no to you.
It's very powerful. I mean, it sounds like you're very, very involved and present, with raising your children. But
I also screw up a lot. I also say things in front of them I shouldn't say,
Well, we're all human, and we all do that. But what do you think? How would America be better and stronger if there were more fathers that were more involved and present with their children?
When did you come to America?
1993.
Okay. You were here for 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
What did America feel like right after 9/11? Were families closer?
Oh, for sure.
They bond together? Did neighborhoods bond together? Were fathers ready to stand strong in their father role?
Yeah, absolutely.
That could be America every day. We just haven't experienced the thing that would make us realize how important that is. And I don't want another 9/11. But did you notice how when people came together, there was a very natural order that came after 9/11?
Yes.
Churches were full. Fathers were there holding their kids and their wives. You see that? What is that thing they do when someone has a heart attack? They take the
electric
defibrillate, right? And they put the thing on there and they put them to get the heart to go again while they're waiting for the ambulance, right? So it almost like that happened to America.
Yeah.
It was like a boom moment. And you saw natural order happen everywhere.
Well, there was another crisis that happened in 2020, and for some reason that did not happen. It actually divided people even more.
Well, that was because there was no leadership. Governors led differently. Gavin Newsom told you to do one thing in California. Ron DeSantis, ex-Navy, if you put him in the cage with Ron DeSantis, he'd kick his ass. But I pay to see that fight. Gavin, I said, good luck, dude. Good luck. Here it comes. You're about to take a nap. So, because you had someone like DeSantis leading in Florida, you had Greg Abbott leading in Texas, and look how difficult it was for them to lead. How hard was it for them to stand up and lead? The government and everybody else was all over them. And so it wasn't a unifying event. Our leadership split us in half. The leadership did. I voted for Trump twice, loved him, but Operation Warp Speed was not perfect. And then he loses the election, and then Biden did things that were crazy. But we didn't come together.
Yeah. So what this sort of tells me is that potentially the only way is for something like 9/11 to happen to really shake things up. Because if everything is sort of just smooth sailing, then people don't really want to change things.
We also need podcasts like this, and we need messages for people. Say, this is what's going on. The mainstream media, they want progressive. They don't want strong fathers. They don't want strong families. They want progressive. It's because, and I believe this to be true, they are led spiritually in the wrong direction. If you believe in Jesus Christ, you believe in the Holy Spirit, then you also have to believe the other parts of the Bible that talk about the spirits that tempt us and want to take us to do things that are bad. You can't have one without the other. You can't just have, the nice Jesus and love and all this kind of stuff and that message without understanding why. Go back to why. Tell your kids. Do you know why Christ came? Because God gave a broken earth a way out. Period. Okay, Dad, I get it. Wait, I'm not done. Way out from what? Why don't you go read? Oh my God, we're fallen, we're broken, we're separate from God. We're not heading to heaven. We're not living a blessed life. And what does it say in the book of Revelation? It's pretty messed up and it's kind of scary. Okay. Do you think that's just a fake story to scare you? Or do you think there are really spirits like that are fighting the Holy Spirit? And they're losing. But do you believe they exist? Yes. So if you believe Christ exists, then you believe he was sent from God. You believe he exists? Yes. Do you believe he's Son of God? Yes. Then he was sent from God. Why? Because 1/3 of the original angels were cast out, and they live to gently, quietly move everybody away from God. So why is that? So if you believe one, then you got to believe the other. And I think we need more messages because mainstream media is deceived.
Yes.
And they talk about progressive things and they clap for each other. And I don't think they understand what it is. And Christianity is the only religion on earth that wants our enemies to live. I want my enemy to live long enough to see the light. And you look at there's other faiths out there, they just want to kill their enemies today. And it's not just one religion, I'm not going to name it, but there's several that are out there that just, that's it. Oh, you're not us? It would be better if you just died. Christianity is the only one that says, no, I don't want you to die. I don't want you to hurt me. I don't want you to hurt anybody else, but I want you to live long enough to see the light of Christ, because even as I disagree with you and I'm angry with you and I don't like what you've done, inside there is a spirit as valuable as mine to God. And I don't want you to hurt anybody, and the consequences are handcuffs in prison if you're a crazy person. But even then, I don't want you to die. I want you to have that moment to choose the living Christ, because then I don't have to worry about you anymore.
Yes.
And it's one more for God's side. And so you think about it, Christianity is the only one. We don't want to kill our enemies. We want our enemies to live long enough to see the light, because we realize that hell is, and final judgment is so bad. We don't want that for anyone. Some will die deserving of it, but we don't say, we don't laugh at them. We don't laugh and say, ha ha, got what he deserved. You can look at a criminal and say, well, he got the consequence, and unfortunately, but there's really no joy. There may be relief that a killer was stopped by the police.
Mm-hmm.
We may feel relief, but I never feel happiness. I only feel relief.
Yeah.
Okay, well, he's not going to hurt people, and he was going like this, and there was no other choice. The police had no choice, had to stop it. And that's the way it stopped. I'm only relieved. I'm never joyful.
And one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast is because one day I was thinking about, why have we immigrated here? Why did so many people from where I'm from immigrated here? What's the reason? Well, the reason, if someone was to kind of research and find out, well, we had to prove that we were persecuted, that we were Christian. So our parents went to Moscow embassy and they had to sit there and were questioned, right? So then the question is like, okay, so did God do that and bring us over here because he just wanted us to practice our faith in freedom here? That's what I used to think when I was little. But then as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, no, that's not true, because there's so many people who die for Christ, for the faith in other countries, being persecuted in China, in other Muslim countries, right?
Today,
yeah. So I'm thinking that this cannot be the reason why. So then why are we here? Why are so many people we came here? And then I'm remembering multiple conversations that were very similar to this. I'm talking to someone who has raised children here in America, who was born in America, and we were talking about values, about faith, about things, about where this nation is headed. And they very often would tell me, they're like, this is something that our kids are missing. Like what you're talking about, like certain values, certain principles. You guys came from over there, and you guys still have like a sense, and you can see the contrast between.
So these are generational Americans.
Yes,
because there's no such thing as American race.
Yeah,
there's only American citizen.
Yeah,
right. So we're all from somewhere, but these are multi-generation Americans who have now blended in.
Mm-hmm.
But when you come, they see a contrast.
Yes.
And they say, wow.
Yeah. So
why don't my kids have this? And it's like, go to a mirror and ask the same question.
And at that moment, I realized, Tom, that I need to be more vocal about certain things. If they see that's what's missing in their children or their neighbors, then we have to be a little bit more vocal and have a little more courage to talk about things that really matter, that make this country greater, our communities, our families stronger. And I'm just so grateful that I've met you, Patrick Bet-David. He's also influencing a lot of people right now in a positive way. Everything that you guys do at Valuetainment, I just my hats go off to you guys, to you, Tom, specifically. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, for doing this podcast. This really means a lot to me. I really, really appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Paul. Thank you very much.
So over 90% of you watching right now are not subscribed. If you have made it this far and want to support what we are doing, hit the subscribe button. We are committed to making each episode better than the last. If you have enjoyed this video, here's another one for you to watch.